we're shifting from a time when like CJ and I were growing up where it was very important to be as buttoned up as possible if you were going to be a franchise quarterback. You got your Peyton Mannings, your Bradys, the Eli Mannings. Before that, Montana's, Steve Young's, Troy Aikman's, just buttoned up All-American cats, right? And it was important to do that. Less was best in everything that you said. You know, you were basically trained not to make news. Well, now the LeBron era of kids, if you will, are the exact opposite of that. You look at the guys that you got right now. You don't think that those things come into play. It goes beyond that. Let's not talk about the disaster of Michael Gallup. We re-signed Amari Cooper to a team-friendly deal, what I thought it was. Ended up trading him for a pack of Skittles because he didn't get the COVID vaccine. We've re-signed many of players. Michael Gallup, I remember Tyrone Crawford. Stupid re-signings, basically extending guys because they had good training camps. When Floyd Mayweather was promoting all of his own fights, and I don't think he really lost any fights, but or Oscar was promoting his own fights. When you're the promoter of your fight, it could easily get fucking corrupt. So, but that said, I can't find that Crawford fight. Talk about it fucking later.
Yeah,
but
for sure,
like,
for sure.
I think boxing's in a phenomenal spot right now.
We busy, 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 we busy. That bitch so pretty, got a mean girl just like Lindsay. Said she fucking with me, making drives across the city. Swear this shit can get too litty. Pushing be like Diddy, you ain't B-boy, who you kidding? At the top, I see you there. In LA, I see you there. At the space, I see you there. Texas State, I see you there. I know y'all go crazy, y'all be turning up in the square. Take another pill and we get turned up just by anywhere. Hit you in and say yeah, just to see if there's a bill.
All right, welcome to episode 1 of the Shonee Jackson Show. Long time coming. I'm very excited to do this with my producer CJ here.
Hello, everyone. How are y'all doing today?
Hope y'all are all doing well. If you're watching this episode, I'm going to assume you know me. It's episode 1. But if you don't know me or know CJ, this is going to be a sports show. We're going to get into all the hot topics of sports every episode. Obviously, I'm a football guy, first and foremost. It'll be heavy football, Dallas Cowboys, Texas Longhorns, NFL, college football, the whole nine. And we'll also always stay in tune with everything that's going on. All that said, I don't want to go too long in the intro. You'll get to know me. The show is going to express my personality, CJ's personality, along with the things I've always loved, which are sports first and foremost, and then just laughing, having a good time, and cutting up. We hope this podcast makes your day better. Hope it's enjoyable to listen to and hits on all the points that you're looking for when you tune in, right? So getting right into it, right now we got the NFL draft going on. If you're listening to this, it's the day of the draft. One of my favorite days of the year. If you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, this is our day, baby. This is our day. You know, at the end of the day, we're cursed. It's going to end in dramatic, horrific fashion, and that's the way it is. It's the way it's been since I was born in 1997. It's been a very traumatic life, and yet the draft is our day. We could set the world on fire. We could set ourselves up to turn the Super Bowl back on. We can take over the world of sports for one night a year, and that's in April. In the NFL draft. And so I'm looking forward to that, not just for the Dallas Cowboys, but I'm looking forward to the overall draft drama, see who slides, see if any massive trades go down. If my Cowboys are involved in that, I'll get into a little bit of that later. And, you know, just everything else that comes with that day. So let's start off with what is typically the storyline of the draft, and that's the quarterbacks. And it's a pretty loaded quarterback class. First on the clock, the Chicago Bears. It's obvious at this point they're taking Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is a generational prospect, and he's a generational personality, if you ask me. I think I want to get into it a little bit. I think Caleb Williams is potentially the next LeBron James, if you will, of sports. And what I mean by that isn't necessarily like the obvious that he's a generational talent and is going to be really good at playing his sport, but he's going to be the most hated fucking guy in American sports. And I'm pretty confident in saying that. I think this is the first real Gen Z quarterback that we've seen, which is interesting to me. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, good, bad, or whatever. I think it's definitely going to shake up a lot of people to begin with. If you watch anything Caleb Williams does, I think it's safe to say he might be a narcissist. And, you know, that's extreme. And yet the guy likes attention like a 20-year-old sorority girl. He goes out of his way. And I think going back to that Gen Z thing, we're shifting from a time when like CJ and I were growing up where it was very important to be as buttoned up as possible if you were going to be a franchise quarterback. You got your Peyton Mannings, your Bradys, the Eli Mannings. Before that, Montana's, Steve Young's, Troy Aikman's, just buttoned up All-American cats, right? And it was important to do that. Less was best in everything that you said. You know, you were basically trained not to make news. Well, now the LeBron era of kids, if you will, are the exact opposite of that. And, you know, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, but there's a point where building your brand and being progressive is very important from essentially the jump. And if you listen to Caleb Williams talk, he's very confident in that. He's very confident that he's unique, if not different than anybody that there's ever been. You know, he paints his nails. He cries in his mom's shoulders after the games. He, you know, wears the purses. He does his thing. You know, it's all right. That's what the kids are doing. All right, we'll see how that goes. If you're a human highlight reel the way he is and a generational arm talent with at times you're the fastest player on the field. I've seen that up close, unfortunately. You know, you can get away with a lot of that stuff. If you don't, it's going to be very disastrous. And if you're not a fan of the team that Caleb Williams is on, he's going to be very easy to hate. But it goes beyond him. They're all kind of quirky guys when you look at them. J.J. McCarthy, he does the meditation stuff before the game with his shoes off again. It's like, all right. You know, it was like the way Bill Burr has a bit about the water flipping game when kids were going crazy about flipping water bottles. Shit's just a little different than it used to be. And it's time to accept that. But this is the first generation of guys that we're going to see leading our franchises in our beloved NFL. So I'm excited to see where that goes. I'm excited to see who goes after Caleb Williams. You got a loaded group of guys. I think that it's becoming pretty clear that Washington likes Jaden Daniels, so Daniels to the commies. And the interesting thing is what happens after that. I think Jaden Daniels is an excellent player. I won't dive too much into it. There's a billion mock drafts already. Again, you're going to be hearing this on draft day, so I don't want to wear it out with draft content. But I think at the top, there are some locks on the boxes. I think Jaden Daniels immediately, you know, the guy looked like Mike Vick in Madden 04 last year at LSU. He's electric. He's at times also one of the fastest guys on the field, a legit 4.4 type dude with good vision. Obviously needs to learn to get down more, but they're making it impossible to tackle. So I don't think he's going to have the injury issues you saw guys like RG3 have back in the day. It's just not going to be that common. And he's going to the same franchise, which new ownership and whatnot, you should know by the history to learn your lesson on that type of thing. And yet, excellent passer, great deep touch. You know, he could process coverage. He can improve on some things. But I think Jaden Daniels will be good right away, just like Caleb Williams. And beyond that, it could get interesting. Who falls? Who's the Will Levis of this draft? Who goes way earlier than you think? Who's a total bust? These happen every year. So I'm excited to see who that could be. And then you also got a loaded group of receivers and some true can't-miss guys. I would say, you know, Caleb Williams, for starters, is much as I really don't really like the guy, and I'm going to be a Caleb Williams troll. I'll go out and get that on record. Episode 1, I will be a Caleb Williams troll, and I will root against him every snap of his career. I'll say I think he's a can't-miss prospect. I think he's as generational as it gets. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is the comp. I hate player comps. I'm not a player comp guy. I think it's disrespectful to both players, but obviously that comes from this archaic way that he plays and the things that he can do that go against the grain and the cardinal rules of football. When you're like that and you're that fast, it's really hard to think you're not going to be good, and I think he's going to be surrounded by weapons in Chicago. I think Brock Bowers is a can't-miss prospect. One guy I really want to talk about is Byron Murphy, Texas Longhorn. I think that, you know, when these mock drafts first started coming out, I was screaming from the rooftops that, like, he's not falling to Dallas or in the 20s where they had him slated. When you got an interior defensive lineman that's dominant in the run game and can rush the passer, there's like 3 to 4 of those guys in the NFL at all times. He's not – that's a top 10 cat. I think that Byron Murphy will go top 10, top 12 in this draft. I think he's a lock in the box, immediate starter, immediate impact player. And beyond that, who else did I have? Marvin Harrison Jr. How'd I forget? Marvin Harrison Jr., my number one receiver in the draft. I know it's becoming popular to put Malik Neighbors, understandably so. Malik Neighbors had a freaky year at LSU. I mentioned Daniels. Like I said, though, He had Mike Vick, Madden 04 at QB. I'm not knocking him. I love him. He's my clear number 2. Odunze behind him. But he had the Heisman Trophy winner. And although you're playing in the SEC where there's tons of NFL players all over the field and on every defense that you play, you also get a lot of man coverage, and I think LSU abused that a lot. When it comes to an all-around player, I'm going to bank on the Hall of Fame genes and Marvin Harrison Jr. He was always clutch when it mattered most. He would become a boy amongst men, a man amongst boys, rather. And I think overall, as an overall receiver, size, skill, route running, he's going to be the best. And as he gets older, his football IQ will separate himself, and he'll play for a really long time like his dad did. Moving on from that, what will the Dallas Cowboys do in this draft? As we know, and there's a lot to talk about the Dallas Cowboys, and I think I'm going to ruffle some feathers when I get into this, and not for the reasons that you think I will. The Cowboys offseason, they're a 24/7 soap opera, the most recognizable franchise in the world, the most valuable franchise in the world, the greatest sports brand in the world. Their news 24/7, no matter what they do. The news this year has been what they haven't done. You let players walk. The commies get a lot of our scraps from our defensive coordinator to the players we weren't interested in re-signing. Not necessarily all of them. I think Dorrance Armstrong is a really good player. I'm not going to bash anybody, but I think the rest of them are replaceable, and I don't think he was a guy that it was feasible to re-sign. But obviously the fan base is in shambles if you've been on the internet in the last few months. No matter what happens, it's a disaster. Whoever we don't sign, we're the dumbest team in the league. And whoever we don't re-sign, it's like we're just playing tiddly dicks and not even trying to win. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that the front office is playing a game of tiddly dicks. I don't think that they don't care about winning and their sole focus is money or anything like that. I think with them doing nothing is in fact doing something that they have not done in 20 years, okay? Or I would say 27 years, my whole life. And that is sometimes you got to go backwards so you can go forwards, right? The Cowboys have been a very good team. So the theory that their front office is a joke and not like any other front office in the league. My guy CJ here is a Raiders fan. Yeah. It gets a lot worse than what we've had as the Dallas Cowboys.
For sure, without a doubt.
I think, though, there is a point in that where the definition of insanity's got to come into play at one point. In my lifetime, we haven't been beyond the divisional round in the playoffs. We're exiting in the wild card or the divisional round every time that we do make it. We repeated that again. So take yourself back to Green Bay and the humiliating game that was. Let me tell you something. Every fucking time I close my eyes at night, I see Aaron Jones counting more touchdowns, okay? I see him gashing through our defense, or I see Dak Prescott throwing balls to Green Bay Packers. And this isn't going to be just this Dak bashing, and yet this isn't a Dak glazing podcast too either. I want to be somewhere in the middle, which I think is few and far between as far as Cowboy fans. And I think when you look at that, you look at the Niners playoff games where we didn't give up 1 million points and 1 million yards, where our defense played well good enough to win those games. And that includes going to this regular season game, which is shackling all around. And you look at what our overall record has been against the top teams and top defenses in the NFL over the course of the last 10 years, Dak's career in Dallas, and you can go before that in the Tony Romo era. If you look at how the exits always happen, whether it's just being outdueled by Aaron Rodgers, the brutal Dez catch, everything that has happened, at some point something's got to give. And you can't just re-sign everybody to the extension that they want right away. That's what we've always done. To say that the Cowboys don't do that, the Cowboys have done that my entire life. Let's just go back. We won't go back all the way to the early 2000s or late 90s. Let's just start in 2015 with Tyron Smith. You re-signed Tyron Smith to a 9-year deal early. Let's be honest, the legend. It sucks to see Tyron Smith go. Tyron Smith is one of dozens of players who essentially had their chance at a Super Bowl wasted in Dallas. Hall of Fame guy, first ballot, one of the best tackles I've ever seen. He was hurt the majority of that contract. Every year for the last 5 years, we've been talking about how Tyron's done, how he's broken. He can't finish the season. And then he goes off to the Jets, and it's like, oh, my God, you don't want to re-sign a legend? You're going to do that? You're going to let him go to the Jets on an incentive-based deal? He's not going to hit the incentive. That's the point. He's not going to hit his incentives. He's not going to finish the season. He's done. He's broken. He's a broken man. We broke him in Dallas, okay? That was a re-signing that we made. Let's go back to last year. Who did we sign early? Trayvon Diggs. What happened? He tore his ACL. Okay? Moving on. You look at the guys that you got right now. You don't think that those things come into play. It goes beyond that. Let's not talk about the disaster of Michael Gallup. We re-signed Amari Cooper to a team-friendly deal, what I thought it was. Ended up trading him for a pack of Skittles because he didn't get the COVID vaccine. We've re-signed many of players. Michael Gallup, I remember Tyrone Crawford. Stupid re-signings. Basically extending guys because they had good training camps. The Cowboys are finally acting different than they have acted for the majority of my life. You got all of these coaches going in on the last year of their deal or on just a one-year deal in general. You got a bunch of players going into contract years. Will that be the case when toe meets boot this year? I don't think so. I think guys will get re-signed. I'll say, hey, I want CD to get re-signed. I want Micah to get re-signed. But the thing about those two guys is I don't think there's a lot of negotiating to be said. As Jerry Jones said in his press conference, it's really as much as picking up the phone when you know a guy like CD Lamb probably wants to be the highest paid receiver of all time. When Micah Parsons will probably want to be the highest paid defensive player of all time, if not in that ballpark. There's not negotiating to be done. You're going to do it or you're not going to do it. Time will tell on what they're doing on that situation, but the fact that you're getting in an uproar about not being quick to the extension, but you hated almost every extension I can name in the last 10 years, it's a no-win situation. In my opinion, I think that whether it's right or wrong, the Dallas Cowboys are setting themselves up for what they think is the best possible thing to do to win a Super Bowl as soon as possible. But that might mean that they don't think they can win a Super Bowl this season unless you get some outlandish quarterback play. And so with that all being said, I think you set yourself up to potentially go into this make or break year for your quarterback, your make or break year for your head coach, and probably a few other coaches and players on the roster, and you set yourself up for it to be the break and expect that's going to happen. Let it play out, see what happens with it, and move forward for what's best for the franchise and what's best moving forward at the most important position in sports and the head coaching job. And I think that in general, the Cowboys are going in a direction that isn't as cockamamie as it's being made out to be by national media. I think the Cowboys fans have gotten to a really pouty state that they resulted to. It's understandable. We've been through a lot. It's been brutal. But change has to happen eventually. You go throw $60 million a year at Dak Prescott and he doesn't get past where he hasn't gotten past in the last 10 years, that's stupid. That's not a good thing to do. If you just go re-sign everybody, and like a lot of people in their second or third contracts, they do get injured often, or they're not producing at the level they were in their first contract. That's a bad deal. You can't operate that way forever. I think that teams win Super Bowls with either a top 3 quarterback in the NFL or a quarterback on a rookie deal where you can load up your team. I don't think that the Cowboys have either one of those right now. And if I'm going to read through the tea leaves on the Jerry Jones press conference, which was a doozy in itself, it was a doozy, and I understand the frustrations of that. Get into it a little bit. But if I read through the tea leaves, I think a lot of those shots were directed at the quarterback, and a lot of the shots were directed at the coach, who went on and basically signed a new agent immediately after the press conference. As far as when he's talking about overpaying guys and not wanting to do that and not wanting to make a mistake and saying that we're going to have to get less if we're going to keep Dak Prescott, have less on the team, I think that's what that's saying. Now, I will say Jerry Jones is on a fast track to heaven or hell. And I'm not going to speculate which one that is, whether he's going up there or down there. I'm not God. I don't play that on this podcast. And yet I've been around a lot of old people in my life, whether it be my grandparents or growing up in Georgetown, Texas, near Sun City, the largest retirement community in the nation, I'm pretty sure. I know what it looks like on that final stretch. And Jerry's rounding third, dude. The fucking scribbling on the paper when he talks is hard to watch. It's very hard to watch. At one point, he's double fisting pens, scribbling as he's talking. Okay? He looks like hammered shit. Looks like hammered shit every single time he does an interview. I think we should go Zoom shoulders up if he's talking. We can't keep watching the scribbling on the paper. And then after he's done scribbling on the paper, Stephen Jones lifts it up his son. And he's like, look at this shit. Look at this guy scribbling and doodling on his paper. Like, Stephen, buddy, daddy's on his way home.
Yeah, that's not a good look.
So it is frustrating when Jerry Jones speaks. At some point, you got to process this is a 90-year-old that parties. He's hornier than he's ever been. Jerry Jones is horny as a 7th grader. house sitting for his parents on vacay. You know what I'm talking about,
I know what you're
CJ.
talking about, dude. Yeah.
CJ knows exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, like, no, don't call the dog sitter. I'll watch the dogs this weekend. You go on the cruise without me type shit.
Yeah.
Just busting. Just living the life.
Like trying to break records.
Living the life. Just busting blanks.
Yeah.
Busting blanks all weekend and worried about your kill to death ratio.
Easy.
Except Jerry's 90 on that level. So, he might not be dying, but he's on his way. He's definitely between second and third round in third. And I think it might be best that Stephen Jones takes over those press conferences, says less than what Jerry does. Stop getting in an uproar about the all-in thing, and let it work itself out. I think the Cowboys got 8 all-pros on their team that they all drafted. I think last year was a bad draft, that we typically draft better than anybody in the NFL. The future is not bleak at all. These guys are young. I think we're still the best team in the division. I think, depending on the draft, there's a lot that can happen. So take a deep breath. Drink a glass of water, stop panicking, stop saying the same thing every single day, and especially if you're just doing it because it seems like the popular opinion. Take a deep breath. Let's enjoy this draft. Let's get ready to go defend the NFC East Championship and get where we haven't gone in my lifetime and probably most people that's watching this lifetime.
What's going on, you guys? Thanks for watching PCT. It's got a little ad break coming for you guys. Sorry about that, but it don't matter. Today, we're staying hydrated with Liquid IV. I've been using it after workouts, before workouts recently. It's a great alternative to regular hydration, as it's essentially flavored, and it's very good for your hydration, man. You get essentially 2 times the amount that it would just be if it was regular water alone. It's a category-winning hydration brand, fueling your well-being, and it's a hydration multiplier in one product that I think you're missing in your daily routine. It's festival season. Planning for faster, efficient hydration is essential, especially during summer. Liquid IV has you covered while you prep before, power through the headliner, and then recover for the weekend. Liquid IV also hydrates 2 times faster than water alone and 3 times the electrolytes of additional sports drinks. Like I was saying earlier before, 1 stick of Liquid IV and 16 ounces of water hydrates you 2 times faster and more efficiently than water alone. There's 12 delicious, refreshing flavors that keep you hydrated before anything you're doing, and they contain 5 essential vitamins, B3, B5, B6, B12, and vitamin C, with 3 times the electrolytes of traditional sports drinks. If you guys want to check out liquidiv.com and use our code PCD, definitely use that. I think you get 20% off the entire store. So definitely check that out. It's at liquidiv.com. We'll put it in the description, and then it's code PCT. That's 20% off anything you order. So definitely go check that out. Get better hydration, man. Of course, we all love water. Who doesn't love water? So if you're going to have water, why not make it flavored a little bit? Get 2 times the hydration for it in 16 ounces. So definitely go check Liquid IV out, man. 3-man.
Touch more on some football in the NFL draft. One team that's going to have a lot of players drafted over the weekend is the Texas Longhorns. The Texas Longhorns just had a spring game. Texas Longhorns are going to win the national championship. I think they got the best quarterback room in the country. They're loaded. That spring game is what it's supposed to look like when you're deep at almost every position. Don't get me wrong. There's holes to fill. We're making up a huge gap in losing T'Vondre Sweat and Byron Murphy. We've already filled half of that this weekend, adding Bill Norton in the portal, who I'm very excited about. But in general, the team as a whole has superstars all over the field. You got 5 stars in the secondary, 5 stars on the defensive line, coming after the passer at linebacker. On the offense, your offensive line is basically returning every starter. There's a lot of NFL players on that. Your receiving core is ungodly, probably the best in the country, definitely the deepest. As we talk today, I don't know who else you would put next to Texas. You got Ohio State. There's guys with weapons, but I'm talking 3 deep. I don't know that there's anybody like Texas at the receiver position, and I think that the running game will be completely dominant when you think about the weapons we have, the fear people are going to have in the SEC about getting beat deep by Texas and all their speed at receiver with Quinn Ewers at quarterback. I think the running game, the combo of C.J. Baxter, Jaden Blue, and whoever else fills in there, it's going to be really, really good. But let's get into the popular topic, the quarterback discussion. It's rich people problems at Texas. As a Longhorn fans, you should never be happier. We went through the most brutal 15-year stretch of quarterback play in the history of the program, and in general, the history of the football program. It was the most brutal stretch that there's ever been, at least in the modern era, right? We had some really, really bad quarterback play, some really bad offense in general. Now you're in a situation where you got Quinn Ewers, returning Big 12 champion, Heisman favorite on some books. In my opinion, I think the Heisman favorite. You got Arch Manning as backup, the next Manning, who some fucking doofuses thought wouldn't be good. Bad day to be you. Bad day to be a guy that said Arch Manning would be a 3-star. Bad day to be a guy that said Arch Manning was only good because it's high school competition. Bad day to be a guy that thought the fucking greatest quarterback family that there ever was didn't just produce another one with a bigger, stronger, faster version. You bozos. Right? Does that mean there's a QB controversy? Absolutely not. You got another all-world guy in Quinn Ewers. Why did Quinn Ewers not play a lot? Because you don't need to see him play a lot. He just won the Big 12 championship. He had a dominant spring, looked flawless. He's matured in everywhere you want him to mature as far as all the reporting has gone inside the program. He's the leader of the team. He's a quality young man. There's nothing to see. As Sark said, it was time to showcase Arch, who hadn't really played a game in over a year. And did he showcase himself? Let's just talk about it. Arch went 11 for 13, 191, and 2 passing touchdowns in the first half. He followed that up with another touchdown, and I think he ended with 326. He could have had 4 touchdowns. Isaiah Bond dropped 1. He looked flawless. He looked like he processed coverage really quickly. He knew where he wanted to go with the ball almost immediately as the ball was snapped. I'm talking Aaron Rodgers shit where whether it was the check down or it was a 75-yard touchdown, Arch quickly was looking off safeties, processing coverage, and going where he wanted to and where he was supposed to go with the ball. Sounds like somebody, right? Sounds like his uncles. You add that with the fact that he's a pretty fast, athletic dude. Wasn't able to really showcase in that game. I think it's going to be showcased very early in his career, probably this year. Arch is going to get to play a lot. I think Texas is going to put it on a lot of teams. There's going to be a lot of teams that are not going to keep up with the track meet that Texas is going to put on them offensively. And I think you're going to get to see a lot of Arch Manning. Beyond that, the next quarterback, Trey Owens, the freshman, he's supposed to still be in high school. And coming out of Cy-Fair, obviously was an underrated guy, but Sark targeted him early and stayed on him. And when Sark targets you, you're probably pretty damn good. He's the best quarterback developer in the country. Nobody's resume fucks with Sark's. There's really good ones. Lane Kiffin's good. Lincoln Riley's been good. You can name a dozen good QB developers. Nobody is fucking with Sark's resume, starting at his early days at USC to now. Trey Owens in his first spring game, he just goes 14 of 21, 66% completion percentage, 228 and 3 touchdowns. Ryan Wingo caught one of those. He caught another one from Arch. Ryan Wingo, as a true freshman, also supposed to be in high school, looks like the best receiver on the team. That includes Isaiah Bond, who was the best receiver at Alabama last year. Recruits Jonte Cook, who was a 5-star. Includes just a galore of future superstar type receivers. I think Ryan Wingo's the best one as an 18-year-old kid. Arch will get him for at least 2 seasons. The Longhorns are in a glorious position. They're primed for the SEC. They're 3 deep at every spot. I anticipate them to go and take over. If you ask me, they're the defending SEC champions and Big 12 champions. We beat Bama by 10 in their spot in T-Town. Lucky that the matchups went the way they did. If we would have rematched Bama in the playoffs, it would have been worse. I think we're tailor-made for it up front on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, although I already mentioned you're replacing some guys on the defensive interior, but when it comes to size, strength, there's nobody passing the eye test on Texas. And like I said, when you're elite at the quarterback position, the future looks as bright as it does. You're probably going to be winning championships, at the very least playing for them. So that's my thoughts on the Texas spring game. I'm going to be on 54 yards on Friday with Cam. We'll get a little bit more into that, some other spring games, some more college football stuff, but had to bring it up. Definitely one of the trending topics going on in sports right now. What else is going on is obviously the NBA playoffs. As we're speaking, it looks like Miami's going to beat the fucking Celtics.
Crazy.
And who would have thought?
Game 2 of the first round of the Eastern Conference. Boston is the number 1 seed. Miami's the 8th seed. I'm not gonna lie, bro. I didn't think they were gonna get swept, but just Miami and the Celtics kind of have a history right now of like.
That's the thing. There's deep history there. multiple playoff series. Miami beats them last year. Miami's had their number in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I get where it is, but there's also the thing with the Celtics with me is I feel this coming. I don't feel it coming in the first round. I don't think they're going to lose in this first round.
No,
I think they will win the series.
Yeah.
And yet I don't think they're winning the championship myself.
Yeah.
It's just something about the Celtics, and it's something about Jaylen Brown and Tatum together. You know, you heard, I think, the reports last year, and I don't fact check. I got CJ as my fact checker if I deem necessary, but I don't fact check. But they had a little tiff last year, or it's been reported that they don't necessarily get along, which you don't have to. I get it. You don't got to be best friends to be great teammates or to win together.
Yeah.
But I think there's something to it. I think there's just something to this Celtics team that doesn't feel like a champion to me. When you're talking about, even if they do win the Eastern Conference, the West is so fucking loaded and with dogs.
Yeah.
Ant is looks like damn near MJ 2.0.
Yeah.
Dog. Obviously Luka and Kyrie.
Yeah.
Obviously the Nuggets.
Yeah.
You know, the Lakers being like a 7 seed. The West is I don't think the Celtics are fucking with any of those teams.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Like they might make it to the finals just because the East is kind of up for grabs right now. Like
Right.
New York is doing really good just based off of how good they are defensively. Like they have Jalen Brunson being able to, be the main scorer and contributor for that team. But realistically, do I think I can see them in the conference finals, but I don't know if they make it to the finals.
See,
bro.
and it would take a little bit of a meltdown, and it would take those guys. Because the Knicks would be my,
Other guess.
but
Yeah.
can they get through them? It would. I think it'd just be out dogging the Celtics in the playoffs,
which is very likely because, like you were saying, they don't really have that anymore on their team.
right. And even the Knicks, they're up 2-0 in the Sixers right now.
Yeah.
Brunson's not even shooting the ball well right now. When you're winning games like that, those are the type of teams that can pick up because he's gonna find his shot.
Yeah.
He's gonna find it.
He's all
then they're gonna be
type
scary.
player. Yeah.
It's like the Mavericks. The Mavericks, obviously, I'm a Mavs fan. Dallas, everything. That series right now looks like an early '90s series.
Yeah, for
The
sure.
Mavericks aren't shooting the ball well or consistently. They're not hitting free throws. They're turning the ball over 20 times a game,
Yeah.
and they're 1-1.
Yeah.
So they're going back home. If they do shoot the ball the way the Mavericks can, I think this series ends in 5.
Really.
And I've predicted it to end in 5. I just don't think that we're D'ing up. We can D up on the Clippers. And going into this series, everybody wanted to fucking talk about the matchup problems we would have, and those do exist. And yet, dude, I'm good on Kawhi's old ass. When you got Luka, prime Luka, Kyrie hasn't slowed down a fucking notch. Kyrie is cooler than a mint, just like he's always been cooler than a mint.
Always.
You got old ass James Harden, sorry ass in the playoffs, which
He has his moments, though.
Bro, he does.
And
Harden's-
that's what game 1 was. I feel like he was a big
it's
part of why
moments,
y'all,
though. But
it
it's
is
just,
moments.
It's just moments with Harden. It's
Yeah.
just moments with Harden.
It's never
And
a full playoffs.
Luka and Kyrie are killers, bro.
For sure.
They're killers.
Yeah, I
And
think
then
they
you
led the league in fourth quarter scoring or something.
And down
Just
the
them.
stretch, that's what I think. In this series, even in game 1, the Clippers being up 30. I know the second half you're just taking down the play clock. You're coasting to a win.
Yeah.
But letting us get back within 10 at any point, I just don't. I feel like it's full circle. We haven't even played well.
Yeah.
And it's time to fucking put belt to ass to the Clippers.
Yeah,
There's a lot
for
of
sure.
history. Speaking of Heat Celtics, a lot of history there.
For sure.
But we'll see. And then also LeBron's down 0-2.
yeah.
Ryan Garcia won this last weekend. Did you have anything to say about LeBron?
No, I just think it was very unlucky of them to get matched up with the Nuggets in the first
See,
round.
though, was it though?
Bro, I'm not gonna lie to you. I think if the Lakers were the 8th seed and they went against the Thunder, I think they would probably have a better chance of beating us and the Nuggets. But I feel like that's pretty
Yeah, well, yeah, y'all are the
self-explanatory.
worst 1 seed of all time.
I wouldn't say that.
But the thing is, that's what they say about the Lakers every year. Oh, if the Lakers weren't matched up with the Nuggets, you know why they're matched up with the Nuggets? They didn't win enough fucking games, bro.
for sure.
They didn't win enough games. Why didn't they? Because they're not good enough to. The Lakers, dude, they've lost 10 straight to the Nuggets the same exact way.
Yeah.
Same exact way.
Yeah.
They start off hot, AD and LeBron go off for a little bit. They start talking about how good the Lakers are, how scary the Lakers are.
Yeah.
Fourth quarter hits, Nuggets separate themselves. They either win by 10 or they win like they did the other night.
Yeah, with a game winner.
And,
Yeah,
bro,
and they played a perfect game too, like the Lakers.
Yes,
they
Lakers
had to, and they still lost.
The Lakers, LeBron played great. You know, obviously not when it mattered, but played great. Everybody played great. You had a huge lead. You blow the lead.
Yeah.
If you don't win that game, you're not winning the series. And I just don't think.
I agree.
I just think that they've just built. I'm not a basketball savant by any means, and this isn't about that. But I just think they've built shallow teams. When it gets to the crunch time in these playoff games, when they're not calling fouls and shit, you need more consistent shooters. You need more consistent players in general. GM LeBron's a bad GM.
Yeah,
and
GM.
he builds shallow rosters.
Yeah.
But, NBA playoffs is very exciting. First series. Maybe after the first series, we'll do a legit playoff preview.
Facts.
We'll
go
do that.
Thunder, by the way. We didn't talk about them.
Yeah. Again, after the first series, let's do a playoff preview because fucking Thunder, dude, Zion.
They're still a young team, bro. I think that's.
Exactly what it is.
We are the number one seed in the West, which
Right.
we've earned, but also
Right.
at the same time, we're at that point right now where, yes, it would be very disappointing if we lost because it's 1-8, and like you hate when that happens. But the circumstances are a little different right now. The average age on our team is like 23.
Yeah.
So,
No,
you know
it's
what I mean?
100%, dude.
And we still have like a lot of draft capital. We have a lot of things. So this season is just kind of seeing where the bar is being set for us,
Yeah.
which is high expectations, which kind of sucks. But it's not, regardless of what, I'm not saying we're going to lose this first round. I think we're going to win, but it's going to be a scrappy series. Like, I think we'll win in 6.
Well, and that's the thing.
But it's going to be really close games.
Yep.
Because the Pels do play really good defense, and they have Herb Jones, who's one of the best defenders in the league, and just the way they scheme around pretty much running people off the three-point line,
Right.
and they're going to force us to shoot threes, which we're decent for the season, but the playoffs is different, and it is our first series as a collective besides, I think, Dort and Shea. Those are the only two that have had playoff experience.
And that's just all. I think you're exactly right. I think that's all it comes down to. I think especially being in the West right now, the grind of getting through, beating all these teams 4 times while being that young and not experienced enough. I think that's what it's going to come down to when it's all said and
I
done.
agree, 100%.
But anyhow, in other news, Ryan Garcia, dude, do you watch the fight?
I did watch the fight, actually.
Ryan Garcia's a superstar, and he earned it. He did what he did. He was already uberly popular, right? But like for a lot of what would have been viewed as the wrong reasons. But he did what he said he was going to do. He's a generational puncher that's always had this potential through the roof, and I still think that there's a lot to do to seize that as a boxer. But he, that event delivered. It delivered for boxing. It delivered with all the hype, all of that shit, and the anticipation of him to just be a disaster in there. And where it really works out in a way to where all that crazy maniacal shit he was doing, which I think he's fucking loopy between the ears. I do think he's crazy, but I think it played in to his fighting style. He's trying to get you out of there, right?
Yeah.
He's got elite speed and that crazy shit he's doing, hitting his hands when he would get rocked and all that. I don't think you do that if you're not doing that out of the ring.
Yeah.
You feel what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying, yeah.
But
Was that the fight of the year, like, for boxing?
dude, I think so because just weighing. I mean, I'm not saying that there's not better fights overall. It was a hell of a fucking fight. It was a hell of a fight.
Yeah.
But the hype behind it, it's these younger kids. You have going back to what I was saying about Caleb Williams and stuff. Like you got your Gen Z kids into this.
Yeah.
You got the next wave of boxers. Ryan has been this madman, this TikTok star. He's had a roller coaster of a career and experience. For it to come full circle like that, him and Haney fighting 6 times, that would be game 7. They fought 6 times in the amateurs. For Ryan to do it like he said he was going to do it. And then it's even better. Like I think him missing weight and all that.
Yeah, I was about to ask, what do you think about that?
Bro, it's fucking hilarious, one. It's hilarious.
So, like, was this, obviously it was a statement for Ryan, but does it mean anything since he didn't make weight?
It means it because he beat the shit out of him. And I don't
he
think
was
the weight
knocking him.
has to do with that. I think he should have made weight, yes. But, and he doesn't get the belts. What if anything, it creates another fight to where You can rematch him for the belts, or Ryan's talking about like at 144, maybe you go up and you fight him there again.
Yeah.
You stop him this time as opposed to going all 12. If Ryan can get the stoppage, then that sets up his rematch with Tank. Which he could essentially fucking retire on if he wants to. And I don't think Ryan wants to fight forever. I mean, it's hard. You're getting stroked like $30 million a fight. I don't know what he made. I know he made a pretty penny. They sold like 1.5 million pay-per-views or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, he made tens of millions of dollars off that. It's hard to turn that around as long as you're getting it. But he could set up that rematch with Tank, and we'll see how that goes. But I think if anything, the missing weight just creates more paydays for him and creates an extra storyline. He's a troll, as it is. He is a natural troll, and I think that plays into that. Like he's trolling with it. Bill Haney and did you see any of that today? Where Bill Haney and Floyd Mayweather like got into it?
I didn't see that.
Like Ryan tweeted something afterwards. He was let me just find the fucking
For
tweet.
sure.
He's funny. He's becoming funnier.
I think I did see it. I saw that he called out Sean O'Malley too.
Oh, he's doing everything. I mean, the dude's he's a madman.
do whatever.
He's a madman. But he's starting to become funnier when he was literally just like cringy to me for a while.
Yeah.
So he tweeted today. So to give a brief breakdown, Floyd and Bill Haney were on like Instagram Live. Bill Haney's Devin's dad. Backstory on that: Devin and Floyd were like tied to the hip. Floyd and the Mayweathers took Devin under their wing. They had a breakup, if you will, over the time. Now they're going at it. So they're going at it, like arguing with each other on Instagram Live. Floyd had said something like, "Yo, you could have used my help last week, or like whatever."
Okay.
And Ryan Garcia tweeted, "Floyd told me to come in 3 pounds over. He told me fuck Bill Haney. Whatever."
I did see that.
Like that. That's that. Like dig into the cocky young asshole. He was like, "I drink every day. Who's stupid now?" You know what I mean? Like that's wild. But there's a little bit of that like John Jones in that shit. And he ain't John Jones. I'm not saying he's John Jones, but there's that John Jones where it's like wild out of the cage, but also wild in the cage, and it plays into his favor.
Got you.
I think Ryan's got a little bit of that shit to him.
Yeah. Do you think is he like this generation, and you think he's gonna be one of like the best fighters?
I think he's gonna be the most popular. There's some other guys. Best, no, I don't think he'll ever be the best. I think he needs to stay away from them dudes at 147. Fucking Boots Ennis, Crawford, even Spence, I think would fuck him up. Just his defense isn't good enough. That turning his back stuff like that, like you don't want to do that with those guys.
I saw him that he was doing that a lot.
And they're not, he'll throw 3 or 4 left hooks in a row, which he got punished for. He relies too much on that. It's generational, but like those guys with that level of boxing IQ, I think will tear his ass up. Yeah. You should stay away from them at least in the short term. But
you think he will be like one of the most popular?
Yeah, dude.
I was about to say,
probably
I'm
the most right now.
Prior to this past fight that I watched, I hadn't watched any other one since his Tank.
And I think a lot of people were like
Garcia.
that. Like the Tank, the fight was the fight that I think like the casual fans or whatever, like when it really becomes big, that's the first one they watched of him.
Yeah.
It went the way it did. I anticipated that. Tank's a bad motherfucker. Tank's a pound for pound one of the best.
Yeah.
Right? Tank eats Haney.
Yeah.
Now Shakur Stevenson I think is the best, but nobody wants to fight him. You can't hit him. He's got a boring style, so they can play into that, like that he's a boring fighter and kind of avoid him and hide from him.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, I think boxing's in a great place. Obviously, the UFC's model is just so perfect, and Dana White's created a monster that's not going to be fucked with, but boxing's in a great place. Eddie Hearn is a really good promoter. Finally, they're at a point where I think the best promoter, or at least a really good one, has the majority of the good fighters, and he's starting to get all of them as they free up on contracts.
I've been seeing, is there a thing where it's like 5v5? Like 5 of the like promoters' best fighters going against each other?
Dude, I don't know. It's always divided in boxing. That's boxing's biggest issues.
Have you seen that though? Like
I haven't seen that.
It was like during the Garcia fight, they kept showing like a 5v5 type.
Oh, maybe. See, and I should have probably paid attention to some shit like that.
I didn't
look
know.
it up for me. But that is like, that's boxing, bro. And if you could get it split between 2 guys like Eddie Hearn and PBC or whatever the fuck, wherever Al Heyman's at, you're gonna be good because those are 2 great promoters that are gonna be able to get. I see that. That are gonna be able to make their fight.
It's in Saudi Arabia on June 1st.
Oh, dude, is that the one that Crawford's on?
The card features a unique format with 5 fights taking place simultaneously, each with a different weight class and a different promoter. The event is being promoted by Matchroom Boxing and Queensberry Promotions. The main event is Deontay Wilder taking on Zhilei Zhang in a heavyweight bout.
That's the headliner.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's that one and the Terrence Crawford fight that was just announced. I'll read that to you. I mean, boxing is in a great spot, and they're actually putting together complete cards right now, which is few and far between.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that. Like, were you impressed with the card in general? Like, did you watch the whole thing?
I basically just watched the main event.
Okay,
But
did you think like because that was my first time really watching like the undercard or not even undercards, the main event, just the ones before Ryan and
Yeah, I saw the end of that co-main, and you know how it's real controversial and whatnot.
yeah.
That's boxing as well. Boxing is just full of controversy. It's full of promotional problems, and I think it's
Is it like rigged? In a sense?
It's what's been rigged for sure. There's been a ton of corruption, like going back to the early days of boxing, and the mafia was heavily involved and shit like
who's
that.
the favorite and stuff. Pretty
Yeah, there was some racial rigging back in the day for sure. And then even modern days, like that's the thing. When Floyd Mayweather was promoting all of his own fights, and I don't think he really lost any fights, but or Oscar was promoting his own fights. When you're the promoter of your fight, it could easily get fucking corrupt. So, but that said, I can't find that Crawford fight. Talk about it fucking later.
Yeah,
but
for sure, for sure.
I think boxing's in a phenomenal spot right now. In boxing, they'll call them like taxi cab drivers at your boxing, which is like a dude that'll have like a 2-27 record.
Oh, okay.
And they'll throw him in there with like a future world champion because they just want you to put him on a highlight reel.
Got you.
They're like
They do that a lot, huh?
Bro, when they're promoting the fighters, they're just trying to create highlight reels, and so they could have a highlight reel, start promoting them.
So who's like the up and coming? Like who are the best right now?
Dude, it depends on what you think is up and coming, but like as far as guys just get into it, it's kind of hard to say. But Boots Ennis is the next guy, and that's the one everybody's terrified of. So, and that's oftentimes what happens. Like when you get somebody that's just tearing ass like Boots is, he's going to be avoided for a long time. Once he becomes undisputed somewhere and gets some leverage, he just joined Eddie Hearn in Matchroom. If you saw that Ryan Garcia, his dad and Eddie Hearn, like, did you see that video where they got into it afterwards?
Oh yeah.
Hilarious fucking video. Like they go at each other's throats,
Yeah.
and then they just shake hands at the end.
Yeah.
That's dude's rule, like all day long. But that's what ultimately got. He's like, "Fuck you, bitch!" Like, who are you? Suck my dick.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Who do you got?" And Eddie Hearn was like, "Jerome Ennis," and he was like, all right, yeah. Yeah, he was like, good point. And it was just like truce.
Yeah.
He said, and I saw a tweet, it was like, motherfucker said Boots Ennis, and he just caved.
I'm dead.
That's how good, but like, yeah, I think Ryan should stay the fuck away from him. But in general, boxing's loaded, dude. And I think Eddie Hearn, he's like he's a stud. His dad was a promoter. I think his dad was the original owner of Matchroom Boxing. So he was just like raised to be an elite promoter. But the UFC they got too big of a lead now. They've become the NFL of.
Yeah, I was about to say, I've been super locked in with UFC, and that's been like, I just kind of compared it to that. I'm like, damn, like I feel like
That UFC 300
fight
card
would,
you can actually make a movie about it.
yeah,
Like that was unreal.
yeah,
To be UFC 300, get shit like that video Dana White put out afterwards of all the people like shitting on the card and then how it delivered. That's another thing. I think Dana has mastered like matchmaking.
yeah.
Like look at Bo Nickel, had a little bit of a bigger struggle in this last fight than he did. You know, back in the day, I think White would have thrown him to the wolves right away and tried to get him the title as fast as possible, and then probably something bad would have happened, would have set him back. Like, there's been a dozen guys that's happened to. I think he's learned, and it's still so new, although it's at 300 events. Like, it's within the first 30 years.
Yeah, it's
right?
like 90,
Yeah.
96,
like
or something.
32 years
Yeah,
of
something like
existence,
that.
or that's like
I think
almost
it's
30
like
years.
I think it's like early 90s. Yeah.
So, whatever. So I think he's finally mastered that, and they've just knocked it out of the park. But the fight game in general, I think it's great when boxing's at a good place. UFC's obviously at a phenomenal place and not stopping. But it's good to have good young boxers to continue to grow that sport so it doesn't die with like the youth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Everybody going to MMA instead. And those guys make a lot of fucking money, dude.
Yeah.
If you become a world champion.
Yeah.
But other than that, there's a lot of other shit going on. You see the Reggie Bush stuff?
I did, bro. What are your thoughts on that exactly?
Well, obviously, like Reggie Bush thing, finally. And if you're talking about NIL,
it was just a matter of time, right?
it had to have been. And you would have felt like that a few years ago when all this NIL stuff happened. And Reggie Bush you go back to the Reggie Bush era, when we were kids, he's one of the most polarizing athletes of my lifetime. Like when Reggie was at USC, he is the perfect. Everybody uses Johnny Manziel. I would more so say Reggie, dude. Reggie was fucking dating Kim Kardashian, driving a Hummer. He was one of the most polarizing athletes in the world at USC.
Yeah.
At least in America.
Yeah, I agree.
Everybody had a number. If you weren't like a Longhorns fan, like even in Texas, everybody had a number 5 USC jersey on. They sold. I think that they've talked about it before. I mean, they sold millions of those number 5 USC jerseys, and he got the Heisman taken away because he had a Hummer and a couple bad guys.
Yeah.
And then now you look at it, and these guys are broke off. Right? Let me get a sip.
Yeah, for sure.
These guys are broke off. So you take all that. Reggie was almost sacrificed in a way to get where we are now, and he's finally getting rewarded with what was taken from him. The sad thing in my eyes would be that the controversy all this time has been about how it was taken from Reggie Bush and should have been returned from him to him instead of who it was taken from to begin with, which is Vince Young. And that could be a whole podcast in itself. But that was Vince Young's Heisman. And in hindsight, everybody knows that. And you can say what the fuck you want to say about his 9 yards of carry and all that. Vince was generational. I think at the time, and you can fact check it for me. If I'm wrong, don't say anything. I think Vince Young was the first to have 3,000 passing yards and 1,000 rushing yards in a season. He was clearly ahead of his time as well, not just in like NIL terms. He was ahead of his time at Texas, put at Texas. And then he was ahead of his time as a quarterback. Vince Young was coming out in this draft. He'd be a top 3 pick just like he was back then, but, he wouldn't have got destroyed in the Jeff Fisher, Dr. Heat version of the Tennessee Titans that killed his ass. What did he have, 3K and 1,000 rushing his senior year?
Yep, sure did.
I mean, his junior year?
Yep.
Yeah. I think he was the first one to ever do that. This was in 2005. This is the beginning of like the expansion of the spread and zone read offense, the modern option offense, if you will, that you see. It was the very early stages of it. And we had just shifted from like a more pro style offense to that, and it was unstoppable. We blew everybody out. Look up the 05 Texas team. Obviously, everybody knows the margin of victory was ridiculous. It's one of the greatest teams of all time. They meet, they collide. Vince Young wins that game in a fashion that could probably never be duplicated. Like from the Rose Bowl the year before, beating Michigan, saying we'll be back, doing that whole thing, and coming back to the Rose Bowl, beating the team that was being called the greatest team of all time. We made Reggie Bush essentially a non-factor in that game. The speed matched his speed when he came against that Texas defense with Michael Griffin, loads of dudes. And he was a non-factor. Vince Young was a fucking legend.
Dude.
Vince Young was doing things that had never been done. Yeah.
That final play.
And Reggie Bush tore up a fucking shitty-ass Pac-12.
Yeah.
Like, it is what it is. His greatest highlight reel was against Fresno State. He put everybody on a highlight reel. Don't get it twisted. He did put everybody on a highlight reel. But, like, that game that essentially won Reggie the Heisman was a game against Fresno State. Vince Young went and had a bad game against A&M and basically lost the Heisman in that. But I think that comes down to more of, like, the Heisman needs a better voting system.
Yeah.
They got guys that, like, they're allowed to vote, like, week 2 of the regular season. People cast their vote, like, really early in the season.
Really?
It's, not all these guys are watching every game, especially back in 2005. It wasn't like YouTube TV existed in 2005 and you could throw on the quad box. Like, nowadays, they're not watching every damn game. You got a predetermined guy that goes in as a heavy favorite more times than not. Unless that goes, like, disastrous. There's a few other guys that'll do some crazy things, have some crazy games. They worked in that conversation. People determine who they want, and it's usually by either just, like, looking at stats or it was a predetermined thing. And I think Reggie was predetermined in a lot of ways. Matt Leinart won it the year before. Arguably, Adrian Peterson could have won that. So I think Leinart wins it. Reggie was in line to do it. They're promoting it before the season. Texas became what they became. The Heisman talk from Vince, technically it could have become a thing after we beat Ohio State week 2, but really we had to get over that Oklahoma hump that we had at the time. We did beat the fuck out of them, go on, start beating the shit out of everybody else. But reality is, it's good that he got it back. Now we can talk about what the real controversy should have been. Vince Young should have been the Heisman Trophy winner that year. What do you think about it, CJ?
I agree, bro. I feel like that was a iconic year. Just
Dude.
statistically and also just the moments that he had as well.
Dude.
I mean, like the point differential is points for is
652 for Texas.
yeah, and then points against is 213.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
a lot of those
points
games,
a game, 50 a game for
yeah,
Texas.
Like y'all were blowing every team out,
Dude,
and then
Texas and USC was fucking teams up, and it was like you look at that game. That year was historical, of just like these two giants on a path to
colliding.
meet each other,
Yeah.
and then kind of like talking about that Ryan Garcia delivering completely different world of things. This is arguably the greatest game ever played, so I'm not saying it's on that level, but that's what happens. How massive something becomes when it delivers, because oftentimes when you overhype something, it's just gonna underperform, and it's unfair. They delivered, and like the Bush push with Notre Dame and that Brady Quinn team, and how that happened, and then we had a very close game in the horseshoe against Ohio State that ended in dramatic fashion. Like it was a phenomenal season. It was like my favorite season of all time. Obviously, a big Longhorns fan, but it was just that was the epitome of college football in the BCS era, and that was a year that it actually delivered in that format.
Yeah.
But good for Reggie Bush getting that Heisman back. Obviously, it's been a big thing forever. Everybody's wanted him to have it. He deserves it. He won the award. That's fucking crazy. The NCAA is criminal. Courts have gone as far to say that. Like, this should have been illegal for 100 years. It should have been illegal a long fucking time ago. It's insane to be like, you won an award for being the best player in college football. You were polarizing. You made us millions of fucking dollars. But we're taking that because your parents got a fucking house in Chino Hills and you got a Hummer. Fuck out of here, dude.
That's crazy, bro.
That's bullshit. But good for him. He got the Heisman. Good for college football players being where they're at. And on that, I want to thank you guys for tuning into episode 1 if you did. We got a lot of plans. I want you guys to get to know CJ and I. We're going to get a lot more creative beyond episode 1, and yet it was time to get one out. I hope you enjoy. I hope it makes your day better. We hope you join this journey. Like and subscribe. What is this going to be posted on originally? I'm going to create my own YouTube page, but before I do that,
I'll probably post it just on PCT for now, and then whenever you get your own channel, we can start putting everything over there.
So Parked Car Talks on YouTube,
Yes,
CJ's other podcast. Like and subscribe to that. Like and subscribe to See Me. Like and subscribe to Opinionated Media. Follow us if you fuck with us. We hope your day's better. We thank you for watching. Tune in for more. We'll be back next week.
Peace.
God bless.
What's up, brothers?
What's up, brothers?
What's up,
Episode
brother?
1, brothers.
Episode 1, brother.
Are you ready?
You ready? That was good, bro. Good shit.
We hammer that out, dude.